Then he says, with such a vaccine, you can easily make the etheric body lose the physical body. Once the etheric body is detached, the relationship between the universe and the etheric body would become extremely unstable, and man would become an automaton. For the physical body of man must be polished on this earth by spiritual will. And here's a funny thing that I've pointed out in a past stream, and it's been a while since I've talked about this. Notice how for the ruling elite, they want to find ways to live forever, and even their way that they go about transhumanism, they want to basically find ways not to merge with these machines per se. Like they sort of do. They want cybernetics and stuff to, make them live longer. But they're not putting their consciousness online or in machines. Yet that's what they promote to everybody else's transhumanism. For all the lower class people, they always try to propose this idea that you can upload yourself online. And if your family member has died, you can use AI to bring them back from the dead in digital form. Well, guess what? That is not your family member at that point. That is a robot that has no soul, nothing. That actually might be the machines that they have running everything. They might actually just download us digitally and have our robot versions, our robot clones, run everything. But that will not be us. Technically, yeah, we'll be immortal. But that's not us in that body. That body doesn't even have a soul. It's just the illusion of life. It's not even consciousness. Robots cannot have consciousness. They cannot be human. People oftentimes speak with these AI, with this AI and these bots and think that this is human. It is not a human. It doesn't even know what you're saying. It just detects patterns in your speech and looks for optimal ways to respond based off of the information fed into it. It is not a human. That's all you can ever get out of a robot. That's all you will ever get out of a robot. It cannot have feelings. It cannot have a sense of purpose. It cannot have anything that makes humans human. And sadly, humans are losing that, probably because of stuff like this anyways. Humans are losing what they have that makes them human. And that is the whole point of this. Finally, he says, so the vaccine becomes a kind of arithmetic force. Man can no longer get rid of a given materialistic feeling. He becomes materialistic of constitution and can no longer rise to the spiritual. So, this is another interesting thing. It's an interesting thought experiment. If you divide something into a third, you get 33.3%. Technically, it goes on infinitely. 33.33333333. You get that. If you have 2/3 of something, it's 66.66666666%. Now, there's a whole load of esoteric reasons that they love this 666 number and this 333 number. So whether you believe in a devil or anything, regardless, it doesn't matter. These numbers have significance. One significance they have, if you remove the material aspect from people and you assume people are, we're material. So here's the funny thing. This is one of my criticisms of Christianity. Christianity is like spiritualism. You can even have intellectualism with that. But all right, so I think people are basically mind, body, and soul. This is a very new agey belief, and I'm not into the new age. But that being said, we have 3 different aspects. We have like the spiritual, our sense of purpose, our desire, our reason for higher being. We have the intellectual, which is our ability to think about things reasonably. And then we have our primitive sort of subconsciousness, which basically just has base desires like lust, food, feeling, emotion, but it doesn't think. That's what they usually mean by materialistic. So, Christianity proposes that we get rid of that aspect and only concern ourselves with the spiritual and the intellectual. The problem is, in order to be human, and because that's part of your basic nature, you actually do need the materialistic element. Now, I think the materialistic element without the spiritual element is even more dangerous, but either way, you're removing a third of what it means to be human. So, when he proposes removing the spiritual from humanity, he's removing a third of us, thus reducing us to 66.6%. If you go even lower than that, I find it sort of funny that the Masonic number is 33. There's a whole bunch of reasons for this too, but the Masons, while they are a big thing and their leaders are actually ruling elite, the Masons are basically a puppet. They're like a puppet group of people. They're not the people who are actually running everything, although they do. They are influential, but they're the stooges. They don't actually reap the benefit that the ruling class get. They're just put in place to take the blame, and they think that they're the ones controlling everything. That's what the Masons are. But it's funny that their number is 33, because they're going to be reduced to 33.3% of a human. It's not the only reason, it's just an observation, but I think it has merit. I'm going to go ahead and read the chat before we get into the next part. Yeah, this is just pisses me off reading this stuff. I mean, these are all quotes that I've heard before, but whenever you, every time you read it, it just infuriates you, because these are the things that you notice in your everyday life that just keep getting worse, and you notice that we keep heading towards them, but nobody listens, nobody thinks about it, nobody has any critical thinking skills anymore. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Oh, yeah, I missed one from Dark Thought. He says that, yeah, ministry, my mother is also a problem individual, elderly now, but I find her to be 100% negative influence. I'm traumatized for days after talking to her on the phone. She did a lot of damage and to this day lives in denial. Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing, all right? When I got married, and this is a story I haven't really shared, my mother, on the wedding day, all right, I didn't invite her. And the reason being was because she caused me so much trauma, and I've mentioned this to her. I didn't just, this wasn't just out of nowhere. I've told her several times. Every single time she has blamed me. So she kept, once she figured out that I was getting married, she kept pressuring me up until the wedding to, let her go. And then she kept getting mad, and then she kept going on about how I was a bad son. And so I told her the things that I was upset about, the things I didn't like about the way I was raised. And she's like, well, no one's perfect. And then she went on to just... all she ever did afterwards was just demonize me, and she claimed that I was the problem child, that everything was my fault. Basically, she ended up blaming me. And the fact of the matter is, I think most of the time when you have problems, as a kid, you can identify if you've had, problems, being raised as a kid. Raising people isn't easy, but you don't have to be that toxic of an influence to your children. There are actually some things now that I'm an adult that I didn't agree with when I was a kid that I actually do agree with her on. But that being said, the reason I agree with them is for a completely different reason, and I will actually explain that to my children rather than just yelling at them and making them feel like they're awful. Because my mom, all she ever did was yell and demonize me for being a male and like my father and all this other stuff. It was awful. You recognize this sort of toxic behavior, and maybe that's why I have always recognized that the government is sort of toxic like that as well. But it's not fun. It's never fun to have parents like that, and With that being said, I think the best thing to do, and I really hope you've moved on, is If you can't have a nice family with the people that you were actually born with, start a nice family. Start something nice. Be what you wanted to have as a parent. That's my entire goal. Like, when I think about having children in the future, which hopefully that happens, that's what I want. I want to be the sort of dad or parent that I never had. I want to actually be that for my kid. And it's ridiculous that people try to convince you to not have kids if you're from like these broken homes. They try to convince you that it's not worth it, or that kids will just drag you down. That's just a whole societal standard anymore. They just want you to think you're broken, but you can rise above having toxic parents. You can rise above the toxicity. And of course, you're never going to be perfect in life. But the fact of the matter is, the least you can do, which my mom never did, is apologize for what you did wrong. I would have invited her to the wedding had she apologized. That's what I was waiting for. But the fact of the matter is if you have to tell somebody that they have to apologize for what they did, they're not going, like, in order to get something, they are not going to apologize out of genuine feelings. They're going to apologize to get what they want out of you. And if I ever have kids in the future, which I hope to, my mom is not going to be allowed near them.